And the piece, the show ends with inspiring people to be the leaders that they want in their lives. So it's like you can't keep waiting for some hero to like sweep in and save your community. Like you have to do whatever it is you need done in your community, and just start with what you know. So that's what the piece is about. It's kind of like using my personal story as a way to inspire folks to love their own story and hopefully be able to tell their own story. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I'm
okay.
with you every bit of the way here. Now, since it is your story, and your story, if you go to your website, iloveisaverb.com, and, again, I keep going back to Nigerian dyke, but that seems to be a focus. Is that a huge part of your work? Is it that you are a lesbian, or is it that just what happens to come up? People, when you walk in a room or it's poetry night somewhere, are they expecting a lesbian poem from you? Are they expecting a black poem from you, or do you do what's you? Is that just what happens to be you?
I give who I am, and who I am is Nigerian dyke. I think that I don't know what people expect. I try and be really honest with people, right? So sometimes people don't want you to be too much of a dyke, right? And I don't identify as a lesbian. I identify as a dyke because I think that lesbian is a very, it kind of feels like chair to me at this point. Like it's easy for people to say it now, right, and be PC with it and be like, oh, lesbian, homosexual, gay. And I think dyke is a little kind of jagged with it. And people, especially being someone who identifies as a femme, as a hard femme at that, right, they're like, oh, you're a dyke, because people think that dyke only means butch. I'm like, no, to me, dyke just means a woman who loves a woman passionately, and I'm definitely passionate, so I'm a dyke, And I like that word, so I think that it has it has some tenacity to it and some grit, and I like that. So in terms of responding to like what people want, sometimes people don't want me. They kind of want to tone me down, right? They want me to I think sometimes people, they don't necessarily want you to be, they're like, oh, can you do a poem? But they don't know what the artist is going to be like, right? So they might not want you to, quote, unquote, offend anybody, and that usually means, can you just pretend that you're straight, or can you not be quite so queer, or whatever? And I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I always come out when I perform, always. So if that's a problem, then I can't do the show, right? So that's what I would give. Now, if people want me to come through and do love poems or come through and talk about, do a benefit for Haiti, that's completely fine. I have no problem working within themes. If that theme means that I can't be a dyke, or that I can't be Nigerian, or that I can't, be something about myself that I value and care about, like, loving freedom and loving black people, then no, I can't do the show. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it definitely answers my question, because, like I said, reading up on you, you're very out on if you, like you said, if you Google you, you're going to come up. There's no hesitation that dyke is everywhere, and you blog, you talk about it. When you talk about your life, you're very out and open and things like that. So, and it would appear that your work, is essentially, like you said, you. And so that's going to be a part of who you are and what you're going to do. And I just wonder, do people expect that from you, or do they want that from you? And we've spoken on the community from two angles here, one in the States and one in Nigeria. But how does the community, treat a performance artist or a Nigerian dyke? And realistically, is there a difference between a Nigerian dyke and, say, a Southern dyke, or heck, or even an Eastern dyke?
An Eastern dyke where? You mean in Africa?
Yeah, no, like Eastern U.S. dyke or something like that. Like a.
I don't know, because I'm not one. But I'm only me. I think that I think that the similarities, when I look at, because I look at queerness globally sometimes, because of the communities that I'm a part of, right? So as I'm learning more and more about queer activism, LGBT activism, on the continent, of Africa, and I look at the way that, like masculine women hold their bodies, for instance, or like how we look at each other, or how some folks express their transsexuality, or how we joke with each other, or how we show affection with each other, right? And I see these similarities that like transcend. They just transcend nation. You can just see people's queerness, right? It's like, oh, that's so familiar.
Right.
I saw that in New York, and so I feel like there's these similar, like I feel like if you go, when I feel at home with Black people a lot of times, when I've been on tour and I've been with folks that just, there's a certain kind of love that, writers communities show you, or like people of color show you, but specifically like Black people, like I just feel at home with Black people, right? And I feel at home with Africans in Africa, or with Africans here. And I think that there are similarities and there are differences based on like geographics. I feel like, like for instance, Blacks from the South sometimes tend to be a little bit more, I don't want to be like make generalizations, but can be chivalrous, because the South can just feel so homey, and like Butch Dykes sometimes can just like be a little bit chill and slow in a different way than like Cali Dykes, because like Cali Dykes are like slow but not Southern.
Right.
Different kind, but then New York Dykes are like have that like swag, but can like really kick it up a notch and like make it happen and like keep it moving and kind of move fast when you got to, because it's New York, right? So I feel like that we have differences among us, but there's some similarities. There's some similarities that you can see. I'm trying to get at your question. You're saying like, is there a difference like between a Nigerian dyke and like dykes from other parts of the country or
not
the
really.
world?
Well, in that sense,
and I just want to make sure that I understand your question so I can answer it right.
No, you're doing fine. I meant like when it was like a two-part question realistically, because again, you are saying the Nigerian dyke is in essence a part of you. So I was saying, is there a difference, if just between the Southern dyke or the Eastern U.S. dyke or even the Western U.S. dyke, compared to the Nigerian dyke, and even facing the community? Is it more open? And then you had already mentioned about, performing and how they expected a certain poem possibly from you, or didn't want this possible poem from you, and things like that. So no, you answered my question fine. And of course the word dyke and your definition of that as well. So we're good to go on that question. What's going on for you in the future?
What's going on for me in the future? Well, I'm working on my novel, which I've been working on for a long time. I'm working on it for 10 years. And it's about this Nigerian dyke who's in school, in undergrad, and trying to figure out love, trying to figure out how to be in a healthy relationship with herself and with her lover, and how to balance her intense love for her community with her love for herself, right? Because she's a bit of an activist workaholic. I think we all know some, and some of us might be some. So it's this journey, basically, of her own self-love. And I started it when I was 20 because I just wanted to read a love story between Black dykes, and I couldn't find any. There are a lot of love stories out there. But at that moment in that library, I couldn't find any. So I was really frustrated. I was like, well, let me just create one, right? And so that's like something that I'm working on and wanting to I'm really close to being complete, probably 90%, but there's some things that I feel need to still be unraveled in that I'm looking to make happen this year, and would love to see it published by next year. Would be fabulous. Having it in people's hands and available for download and stuff.